So as you guys might have heard, Jordan Peterson is back in the news in a big way because he's in Russia now with brain damage. He went to some kind of shady Russian medical facility, Russian rehab, where they put you in a medically induced coma so that you don't have to deal with the symptoms of withdrawal. And I guess that he awoke from that coma with brain damage. And this is to deal with his addiction to, I don't even know what he was addicted to. But anyway, people are talking about Jordan Peterson again, so I thought I'd get back in on that Jordan Peterson action, take a look at some of his philosophies once again. So a few weeks ago, me and my brother Scotty sat down and watched a Jordan Peterson video about God and what God means to society, and he had some interesting things to say, and I hope that we had some interesting things to say to rebut him. But before we get to that, here's a word from our sponsor. Are you tired of cutesy nonsense RPGs with sparkles and rainbows and all that garbage? Whatever happened to that true fantasy feel of big beefy monsters, elves, knights, and orcs fighting demons in a medieval sewer? If that's what you're looking for, have I got the game for you? Raid Shadow Legends. Look at some of the crazy champions you can collect. Like this chick who kind of reminds me of Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. Or this guy who appears to be some sort of friendly lumberjack character. This is a cross-platform game, so when you install it on your mobile device, you can also play it on your computer and vice versa. There's basically nowhere you can go that Raid cannot follow.
Not even in the cold vacuum of space.
The thing I like about Raid is the auto battle feature. You know, because sometimes I don't necessarily want to make every decision for my party. I just want to do the character builds and then sit back and watch them go. And now you can play Raid on mobile, on desktop. It's cross-platform. You can play anywhere, anytime. Same username. Just switch between devices whenever you want, however you want. The graphics are amazing in the mobile version and the PC version. And the game is super fast as well. I'm YouTube TAA on the game, so drop by and say hello. Go to the description down below, click on the special link, and if you're a new player, you're going to get 100,000 silver plus one free champion, Slasher. Now, this is a really badass champion that's going to help you progress through the game, and this offer is only on the table for the next 30 days. So hurry up, sign up. What are you waiting for? Go do it. Using the link below, and once you're there, check your inbox. That's this thing right here, and that's where you get your champion. That's where you get your other rewards. It's all going to be there when you sign up with the link down below. Raid Shadow Legends. Remember, supporting my sponsors helps to support this channel, so do that. And without further ado, here is me and Scotty taking on Jordan Peterson and his stupid bullshit.
Well, Dostoevsky, I believe it was in Crime and Punishment, although he makes the same point in many of his books, he makes a very fundamental point, and this is the kind of point that I think that people who haven't investigated these matters down this particular literary and philosophical pathway never grapple with. Dostoevsky said straightforwardly, if there's no God, so if there's no higher value, let's say, if there's no transcendent value, then you can do whatever you want. And that's the question that he's investigating. And you see, this is why I have such frustration, say, with people like Sam Harris, the sort of radical atheists, because they seem to think that once human beings abandon their grounding in the transcendent, that the plausible way forward is with a kind of purist rationality that automatically attributes to other people equivalent value. It's like, I just don't understand that. They believe that that's the rational pathway. What the hell is irrational about me getting exactly what I want from every one of you whenever I want it at every possible second? Why?
Because it's not going to work out that way in a world where everyone's vying for that. If you just create a world where you say, fuck any rule, it's all about self-interest, every man for himself, have at it. You know, which to some extent is the world that exists, by the way. But if you just say unfettered, that's the truth of reality, let's just do it. There's going to be, for every winner in that system, there's going to be 100 or more fucking losers. There's going to be so many people who end up miserable, dead, injured, subjugated, starving, brutalized, etc., etc. And like I said, the world's already kind of like that, and there already is that.
you know, it's yet again the argument.
But
that,
I mean, like this idea that you know the rules of society don't make sense unless you have this higher order over everything. No, the rules of society are there to protect the masses from, you know, losing that game as badly as they would if it was just a fucking free-for-all. Because that's when it just is, you're all serfs and you serve the fucking feudal lord. And maybe he serves a king that's higher to him. But over your life, he has dominion. You know, and that's the kind of system that naturally crops up in human societies if you just have this free-for-all. And like I said, I'm not convinced that we don't just live in a slightly refined version of that to begin with.
I mean, I think the most arguments would point to that's really what we live in. You know, I basically agree. It's just another take on morality. And it, like you said, it's about, oh, is there a higher power? Is there a higher level of order? Is there some sort of reason why we follow these rules? Is it just simply that we follow them? And with atheism, it's saying, oh, if we don't acknowledge that, if we suddenly just say we have to get by logic and reason and empathy, and we have to exist in a society that there isn't an objective reason why you should do this. We just look to consider, we have a critical and rational examination of reality and say, what is the best method and what is the best way for everyone to coexist and try to get along and try to do it to the best possible ability that most people have.
I mean, belief in God has not stayed the hands of murderers. It's not, you know, made
just
people
as there's
less...
non-believers that have killed people for ridiculous reasons.
But there's plenty of believers who, you know, they believe there's this higher authority that's holding them accountable, and they still kill entire cultures that supposedly follow that morality of that God, have destroyed entire other cultures that don't. Or in other cases, entire other cultures that do.
What's a great place where people find religion? When they go to prison for horrible things they've done. Seeking some sort of forgiveness. Oh, you know, now that I found religion, it's all okay, though. What I did is all right. And obviously, there's a concept of forgiveness in religion. There's a concept of forgiveness in a secular sense. But the point is that when you come to something like that, how are you coming to it and why? And if you're coming to it simply because you're ordered to come to it, and this is why you're coming to it, that to me is a scarier reality altogether, because you're not really thinking about that. You're being commanded. There's a pronouncement that's being made, and you have to follow it. And if you don't follow it, then you're in violation of basically the most egregious sin possible. You're going
and
against
you know what?
The all-powerful, all-knowing creator of the universe.
And you know what? We already have a real-world version of that. It's called laws. You know, there's laws that exist against certain fucking acts like rape and murder and so on and so forth. And it's designed to discourage people from those acts. And, you know, that's a source of higher authority that exists in a very secular way. You don't need a God to, you know, have the police bust down your door. You don't need a God to put someone who murdered someone else in prison. You know, there's real-world consequences, and the reason we've constructed those is to bring order to the world, because God alone doesn't seem to have been sufficient. And even law and order doesn't seem like it's able to really tackle the problem. You know, there's people murder and steal and rape and do all those horrible things every day, even though they've been against the law forever.
It just goes back to that, you know, the famous saying, well, like, whence cometh evil? You know, and it's basically the argument, well, why won't God stop it? Why, you know, is he unable to stop it? And I mean, if you believe in God, then you have to say he just is not interested in stopping it, or that's free will for you.
Or he takes a very hands-off approach to the human world and morality and all those things.
Yeah.
Why is that irrational? And how possibly is that more irrational than us cooperating so we can both have a good time of it? I don't understand that. I mean, it's as if the psychopathic tendency is irrational. There's nothing irrational about it. It's pure naked self-interest. How is that irrational?
It's irrational because if you have one psychopath up against a group of people who cooperate with each other, you know, if the psychopath's probably going to lose in direct confrontation with that group. I mean, like if I decide my strategy in life is I'm going to cooperate with others and we're going to form a coalition, then we're going to eat individuals for lunch.
Yeah, even if they're a psychopath.
It doesn't matter how psychopathic and self-interested they are. If we, as a group, I mean, like, yeah, 10 dudes with clubs following the self-interest of their group, the collective interest, are going to prevail over one dude following his own selfish interest 10 times out of fucking
And
10.
not to mention, psychopaths often excel at cooperation when it's necessary.
Yeah, for their own interest.
They're business leaders. They're politicians. I mean, the President of the United States.
I mean, there's a clear benefit to cooperation and collectivism. Like, I don't even understand. Like, of course it's rational to cooperate with others.
I don't understand that. Where's the pathway from rationality to an egalitarian virtue? Why the hell not?
Well, cooperation and egalitarianism are not the same fucking concept.
Yeah, they're being conflated as the same there.
And there's no egalitarianism in religion either. I mean, there's the clear and defined social hierarchy within that system, any version of it.
Not every man for himself, and the devil take the hindmost. It's a perfectly coherent philosophy. And it's actually one that you can institute in the world with a fair bit of material success if you want to do it. So I don't see. To me, I think that the universe that people like Dawkins and Harris inhabit is so intensely conditioned by mythological presuppositions that they take for granted.
Is that
the ethic
argument
that
you're making? Then you just define what you're talking about. And by the way, the reality in which Harris and Dawkins live in seems to be the most accurate version of reality that anyone has been able to discern thus far. There's no more evidence for what they believe, and they base things on things like scientific inquiry and knowledge and seeking the truth.
He's
not
basically saying, like,
taking their personal opinion on reality.
The argument I'm hearing from him here, and I mean, whatever, he talks in such like oblique terms that sometimes it's difficult to discern what exactly he's trying to get across. But
he won't get to the fucking point.
What I'm gathering from this particular line of argument is, all these atheists that have this rosy, egalitarian picture of human cooperation and all this other stuff, all of that really owes to religion and mythology. Yeah, but they just don't acknowledge what religion and mythology have done.
Yeah, basically, secularism is built off the back of religious belief.
To some extent, maybe that's true. I mean, the church was an early supporter of a lot of scientists and philosophers and stuff like that. And obviously there have been, great works of literature and, art that have been created in the name of religion.
If anything, religion has stunted the growth of humanity.
I mean, I agree with you, but I'm just but I'm just saying, even if we buy that premise, that doesn't make it valid to this day. I mean, like, the horse and buggy was a precursor to the fucking car. It doesn't mean we have to fucking go back to it. No. The car's better.
Yeah. I mean, look, they keep archaic beliefs simply because, well, people believed that for a long time, and it worked out just fine. But then you know what happened? Something else arose. Another system of understanding reality arose. And that system is superior. So therefore, it eventually probably, in a rational, insane world, will replace the system that you're arguing for. So yeah, maybe mythology and myths and superstitious belief had a place. But that time has come and gone. And to look back in the yesteryears, you sound like a fucking person going like, back in the 50s, things were just better in this country. But you're just the fucking extended version of that going, couple thousand years ago, things was great. You know what happened to you a thousand years ago, Jorden Peterson? Your little scrawny ass would have been smashed, your head's been smashed in by Ugg. Because you would have had something that Ugg wanted. Ugg want fish and berry. Ugg, take your fish and berry.
Well, that's the whole reason he likes it, though, because he can say...
He wouldn't like it, though. That's the fucking point.
No, but he can turn be like, ugh, it's wrong to kill. My book says so. And if you don't follow my book, you get to go to heaven. Or if you do follow my book, you get to go to heaven and party for all time.
You know
Ugh, confused.
No, not Ugg confused. Ugg doesn't even get to that part because Ugg smashes dumbass's brain.
Well, apparently not, because eventually the shit took. So eventually Ugg was tamed.
Eventually the shit took because there's enough time to tame Ugg, not the other way around.
I'm not sure Ugg has been completely tamed, honestly. I still think
Ugg has been tamed enough, I guess.
I think he could lash out at any moment.
You never know.
Someone in the chat had a comment I thought you'd like. They said, you know how I know there's no God? Rhinestone. The Sylvester Stallone country western movie, yeah.
That actually gets me back to this, TJ.
Oh, what you got? turn that off.
Emerges out of that as if it's just a given, a rational given. And this, of course, precisely not Nietzsche's observation as well as Dostoevsky's. That's Nietzsche's observation. You don't get it. The ethic that you think is normative is a consequence of its nesting inside this tremendously lengthy history, much of which was expressed in mythological formulation.
Nietzsche would fart at you, okay? Nietzsche would fart on you, Jordan Peterson. What you're saying, Nietzsche explained Christianity as a slave morality, you know?
And he's entirely correct, in my opinion.
I mean, he basically said, like, Nietzsche looked at Christianity's morality and basically said, like, this is just the morality of a bunch of fucking crybabies that want to whine that, you know, the world ain't fair. The world is not so kind to them. So instead of actually doing something about it in the here and now, they'll just glorify poverty and be like, "Oh, it's wonderful to be poor because when we die, we'll get to go to heaven."
Yeah, what a great time to get your just rewards when you're dead.
Basically, it was just a religion designed to placate the fucking masses and make them accept the squalor and misery in which they lived instead of actually doing something about it. So,
and I mean, yeah, the basis.
Marx was right when he called religion the opiate of the masses, and that's exactly what he was talking about.
And yet again, like we said, to go back, it's like, so what if that was the basis for Western civilization, that people and you know what? What about the people that believed in the god Zeus back fucking 3,000 years ago?
Well, him too.
Wasn't that consequential and important to people then?
Well, that's, I mean, like, the thing about Jordan Peterson is you never know whether he's really specifically arguing for God or whether he's just arguing for some sort of higher value, like some sort of higher power, like an AA.
We need something to regulate everybody. We need this source of power.
We need the boogly woogly, the great boogly woogly. What watches you and will judge you and your actions.
You wipe that out. You don't get to keep all the presuppositions and just assume that they're rationally axiomatic. They're the rational.
Sure you do. You can do whatever the fuck you want. What's stopping you? Especially in a nihilistic universe. What stops you from saying, we like these ideas, we'll keep those. This other shit's garbage, we'll throw that away.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can do that. What's stopping you from fucking doing that?
Not to mention...
Hey, we'll take the things that from religion that we think are useful. Hey, it gave us this idea and this idea. We like those. The rest of it is garbage. Talking snakes, who gives a shit? Fuck off.
Look, we had plenty of things when the governments of the world were dominated, especially in the Western world, were dominated by religion. We had the Enlightenment. We had the Industrial Revolution. We have plenty of things that, yes, that came about during those time periods. And those ideas that are good and have held up over time have stayed. And the ideas that have not have faded away into obscurity or are just held by people who are just not being rational about what they see in the world and are not looking at the evidence of what they see.
He's basically saying, like, they say, like, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Well, he's basically inverted that. He's basically saying, like, if you want to keep the baby, you got to keep the bathwater too. It's like, no, you don't.
No, throw it out.
Throw it the fuck out.
It's bad and dirty.
It's garbage.
To make a rational argument, you have to start with an initial proposition. Well, the proposition that underlies Western culture is that there's a transcendent morality. Now, you could say that's
no. What are you talking about? That's not the proposition of Western culture is not. No. I mean, like, I don't know if you're talking about specifically America, which I guess you're not. You're probably talking about like all of the Western world or whatever. I mean, like that religion's been a part of it, but it's not. Is it the underlying thing? Like, I think that human sociality has a lot more to do with it than that, and basic human hierarchical struggles have more to do with it than that. Yeah, people cooperate because they see that there's an advantage in cooperation.
Yeah, there's an evolutionary adaptation. That's why we started living in fucking groups. That's why a lot of these things have happened for evolutionary reasons and pressures, and societal and cultural pressures.
People didn't decide, like, let's group together because of religion. People got together and created religions as a social adhesive that helped keep those groups gelled together. Yeah, a common culture and belief system does help do that. I can't deny that. But to say that the belief system is what brought everybody together in the first place, no, there was very real world pressures that you don't need to invoke any sort of higher power to fucking explain that.
And to say secularism doesn't offer that, Secularism offers people that are on a path to truth and trying to understand reality and the world around them as best as they can, and not simply accepting they have all the answers and understanding they probably won't ever have all of them, and they don't know, and they're ignorant, and they want to know more.
Transcendent morality instantiated in the figure of God, that's fine. You could even call that a personification of the morality. If you don't want to move into a metaphysical space, I'm not arguing for the existence of God. I'm arguing that the ethic that drives our culture is predicated on the idea of God, and that you can't just take that idea away and expect the thing to remain intact midair without any foundational support.
Yes, you can.
And there is foundational support for those beliefs. It's just not the basis in which you want them to be. And you say, I'm not going to argue for God. You're not going to?
I mean, how many cultures at this point are predominantly atheist? Like, I think like in like the Czech Republic, it's like 80% atheist at this point. They've totally rejected the idea of God. Their society hasn't collapsed. There's plenty of societies that have become predominantly atheistic that have failed to suffer this catastrophic collapse that you're talking about.
As you identified, it's a component of society. It's not the foundation of society. If it was the foundation of society, then when people stop believing, society would collapse. As you just said.
But that doesn't happen.
And we've seen in the real world that doesn't occur.
It just doesn't.
And look at the fucking Soviet Union where religion wasn't allowed.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it did eventually fall. But, you know, it was it lasted a pretty good long time, and everything eventually falls, including religious societies.
Where religions fall. What does that mean? All that proves is that everything has a shelf life.
Yeah, so...
Dude, listening to this guy talk is such gobbledygook, dude. He's one of those people where it's like, I just want like, he's someone you just want to get to the fucking point and to speak plainly and speak clearly. So most countries, we're talking about, like, if we're talking about hardcore convinced atheists, not just non-religious, but like, we are convinced there is no God. Is it Norway one of them, or Sweden or something? China is number one. Okay, China, wow. Hugely prosperous, successful country at this point. Between 40 and 50%, certain there's no God. Certain. Japan, country has, I mean, like, both China and Japan, I mean, every country has problems. So let's not fucking say there's any country without problems. Yeah, they're perfect. But between 30 and 40% of Japanese people say they're completely convinced that an atheism. Do they have a functioning culture in society? Yes. Yes. And if 30 or 40% are convinced atheists, that means that a huge other percentage, probably the next biggest class of people, just like them, who cares? Is probably just like, maybe, I don't know. People that aren't really, it's not even really in their, they're not even really thinking about it. It's on their radar. They're just like, who cares? Czech Republic, about the same as Japan, France, Australia. Australia's burning, so maybe that's God's judgment. He's punishing them. But no, none of these cultures seem to just be in like, they're collapsing because they've just got no God. Despite that, maybe when they were founded, they were predicated on a belief in fucking the supernatural or a deity or a creator of some kind or some higher power. Like, every society's got strife and problems and all that, and I'm not saying any of those societies are free from that stuff, nor is our own. But looking back to the times where societies embraced that, would you argue France 500 years ago is in a better state, or now? Now. I mean, yeah, there's its problems for sure, but I think it's made a lot of progress. Progress? I'm scared. And it didn't need religion to do it. It wasn't necessary.
All right, so hopefully y'all enjoyed that. I hope you did. If you guys want to see us take on more stuff, it's not always me and Scotty. Sometimes it's me and Paul. Sometimes it's just me by myself. Abandon Hope, that's a thing that's available only to patrons of Pessimist Productions. That link is down below in the description section. If you want to become a patron, we have one of the most generous Patreons you could possibly imagine. So check that out. And, all the other stupid bullshit you're supposed to do. Rate, comment, subscribe, blah, 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 blah. Click the stupid alert bell. There's like 2 alert bells now. One to like, let me know sometimes when this person uploads. And the other one like, let me always know. And, they probably still don't fucking work because YouTube's a pile of fucking garbage. But you could always give it a shot, you know what I'm saying? And, check back at this channel all the time for regular fucking content, blah, 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 blah. Check out our podcast, Deep Fat Fried. That channel is probably a little bit more active than this one at this point. There's constant stuff going up on there. And you can be aware of all of our goings-on by joining our Patreon. And yeah, that's pretty much it for now. So see you guys later.